So with the concept, we have a live podcast happening here. And after that, we do a little networking. We do a little partying. We act like Playfessionals. Y'all know how we do it, right? And so we want to thank you guys for coming out. Corey, I will give you the honor. Pass that mic to Corey real quick. I will give Corey the honor of introducing our guest podcast host tonight, also our guest. And without further ado, please show some love to Corey Collins.
All right. Thank you. So first off, show some love for yourselves. Thanks for coming out. I know that parking was an issue. We're gonna make sure we make that up to you in further events as well. But you know, you look beautiful. You came out to show love and support. Jamaica's correct. We started this. It was actually during National Black NBA in Houston. I'm not sure if anybody was there around that time, but we threw a couple of events in Houston. Our goal with Playfessionals is to merge professionals with businesses, and this is the way we do it, right? Who's all been in this space so far? Who's all, is this your first time? All right, so that's the purpose, is to try to, you know, get you and expose you to new venues. But what I love about the Urban Hang Suite is we actually have started a tradition of having a live podcast. So I'm going to introduce these beautiful ladies to my right. First off, we're going to talk to Francine and Glyza, who own the Work in Progress podcast, right? And then they're going to be interviewing a very dynamic lady. I'm not saying that because she went to Tuskegee, but that has something to do with it, right? But Jhaelynn Elam, who has been doing some phenomenal things in the Twin Cities and just in your career as well. So first and foremost, once again, thanks for coming out. But I'll let the ladies take it away.
Okay.
Give them a round of applause.
All right. Should we do this like we normally do it? Should I count us out? 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a very special live broadcast of hashtag
Work in Progress.
I'm your girl, Francine, the Liberian Queen.
And your favorite foodie, Galiza.
Welcome, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. Welcome. Give it up one more time for Playfessionals, please. We want to thank Playfessionals so much for inviting us here to do another live broadcast with you. The first time we had an amazing time, so this time we're more than excited to get started. If you have not already done so, make sure you get out your phone, go into IG, follow Playfessionals on IG, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and make sure you go to www.playfessionals.com to stay up to date with all of the events that they have going on right now. All right, so we are super excited to get started today. Now, this beautiful, lovely young lady is the founder of the B Suite, which is an event space in Minneapolis. She is a co-founder of In Sisterhood We Brunch. She is also the founder of Syzygy Travel, and we're going to talk more about that.
I'm excited about that part.
Amazing. She is an entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jhaelynn Elam.
That was quite the intro, Fran. I'm not going to try to touch that one.
She deserves it.
She absolutely does. So let's just get into it. Jhaelynn, please tell us, for those who don't know, a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, I want to say that intro that they had was like super cute. So y'all definitely have that down. So thank you all for introducing me. And Corey, thank you to you and the Playfessionals team for inviting me to be a guest on the podcast today. Shout out to Tuskegee. I'm always grateful for TU. Where you at? Thank you. So we got intros too. So I'm always really thankful for those HBCU connections, honestly. So seriously, thank you, Corey. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Jhaelynn Elam. I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. I have, yes, Midwest. Oh, Ohio, yes, girl. Midwest girly. I have been in the Twin Cities now for almost 3 years, which is actually wild to think about because as I have more conversations with people, I'm reminded of how much I've done in such a, a very short amount of time. So, specifically, I like to introduce myself as a social innovator and a social entrepreneur. And so when I introduce myself in that way, I really like to lead with the social part because community is really important to me, and that's really what centers me in everything that I do and everything that I create. So that's a little bit about myself.
Excellent. Well, tell us a little bit about you growing up. What did young Jhaelynn want to do? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yes, so young Jhaelynn was very curious, which still, is with me today. And because of that curiosity, I was interested in a number of things, from journalism to law to entrepreneurship, and eventually landed on science. And, I will say a lot of that was because of this push for Black women to pursue STEM. And I don't know if you all experienced that as well, but I think of just because of the gaps within STEM specifically, there was this heavy push for like engineering and science. And so I ended up falling into that because of the resources that were available to me, which also speaks to, my personality and just being someone that takes advantage of the resources in front of me.
I like that. I'm also a foodie. So I was happy to hear that it's food, travel, and impact for you. So when you think about the three very opposing or different, themes, what made you or how did you creatively put that together?
So like the food, travel, and the social impact. Yeah, so I'll start with the food. So for me, the reason why I pursued food as a focus was because of just being a very curious young person and having this passion for food, but wanting to really learn more about it, and also seeing it as an opportunity to bring people together, and it being so much more than this consumable. Food is something that connects people through culture, through conversation, through history, through the arts. And so really with this multifaceted understanding of food, I naturally found overlaps. And when I founded Syzygy Travel, what I really wanted to do was bring this passion that I had and give it a purpose and share it with people. And so because I, love to travel and share with people the places that I would try when traveling, I realized quickly that that wasn't enough. And that's where the impact part comes in. And so I really wanted to be able to share that with other people who were curious about food too, and who were curious about traveling and curious about culture. And so eventually I decided to host these trips that centered food. And along the way, wanted to figure out a way to also make, it accessible. And so something that I decided to do in the process of curating these trips was to also create a foundation that would support students to be able to get ahead and support them through funding passports and other experiences that would essentially open up the doors of opportunities for them to explore as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so let's backtrack just a little bit because you started in food. And what brought you to the Twin Cities was you were a food sensory scientist here at General Mills, correct?
Yes.
So tell us about that experience, and then we'll get into your transition into getting into your passion. So what was that like being at General?
Yeah. So specifically as a sensory scientist within the space of food, the food industry, the sensory part really is what I was able to find as my path to stay connected to people. And so in getting into science and quickly learning that it wasn't a fit for me to be in a lab all day and to be disconnected from people. And so sensory science at its core is the study of the senses and understanding the human interaction to stimulus. And so as you're sipping your wine, as you're eating your food right now, there's a reaction that you have to it. And so it's really quantifying and qualifying that experience in a way that helps us understand, how do we make that better for people, for consumers? And then also how do we make the context in which it's consumed better? And so specifically going into that, I felt really connected to the people part and really enjoyed that part about my work. However, within, the corporate sector, I immediately felt boxed in and how I would continue to explore that further.
Can we deep dive into that? Because I know some of us have been at jobs where we started to feel boxed in and we felt like this is not my purpose, this is not my passion, I should be doing something else. Can you tell us about that feeling right there? What was the moment like when you were like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not right for me.
Yeah.
Come on, somebody, okay? So what was that like for you? What was that moment when you're like, exactly, this is the day, I'm not doing it? Was it a person? Was it a bunch of events? Was it like after so much time, you're like, you know what, I am over this, I'm done. Tell us about that specific moment.
Yeah, so I think it was me just growing and evolving as a person and learning more about myself and what was important to me and not what people, wanted to see me do, but more of what I wanted to see myself do. And really just wanting to truthfully live a full and big life. And so in wanting to live a full and big life, I'm interested in pursuing a number of things, right? And so that's really how I view the life that, I want to pursue. And so in knowing that and being in an environment and feeling boxed in, it was very suffocating because I feel like there was no breathing room to actually explore these other parts of myself that I was interested in. And when wanting to advocate for that, that's where I found a lot of just difficulty because people, most people are used to doing the same thing for years. And so when you are advocating for something different than they're used to, then even there's this discomfort that they experience and not even knowing how to communicate with you about it. And so eventually I just felt unheard, undervalued, and underutilized.
Yeah, I agree. I like that you said you wanted a full life and a big life, and I think you've spent most of your life in Dayton, Ohio. Is that correct? Like at least where you grew up.
That's where I grew up. Yes.
Okay, so transitioning from that to, I think we had a conversation before about what diversity looked like back in Dayton, Ohio versus here. Tell me what that looked or felt like from a visionary standpoint. Like I'm gonna move into this new city, this new place. I have 3 different ideas, right? Maybe not all simultaneously, but just ideas and hopes and dreams and aspirations that you have to be an entrepreneur, to create a sense of community and to push for that social justice piece. Like, how do you even begin to go from one state to another, transition, have a vision, be an entrepreneur, and make it all look so effortless?
Yeah. So we got to back up a little bit.
Yes,
So,
take us back. Hello?
So I grew up in Dayton, but because I wanted this big and full life, I knew that I had to get outside of that space, because it wasn't in my immediate view. And so I ended up going away for college. Like that was really the first step for me. And I chose an HBCU specifically because I wanted to be a part of the rich legacy and history of HBCUs and also contribute to an institution that was created with me in mind and for me. But I also will say, being from Dayton and growing up in predominantly Black spaces, having Black educators, like that was the norm for me. And then transitioning to an HBCU, that was also the norm. And so I'm really blessed to have this healthy relationship with my identity as a Black woman. And I think that's really the foundation of what makes me who I am. And so as I've moved to other states where that's been challenged, I think that's just fueled me even more to create some of the spaces that I've created because I do have this healthy relationship with my identity and I do value it and I am proud of it. However, there are often not enough spaces that affirm that and that affirm the whole identity of what it means to be a Black woman. And so for me, navigating, moving around, like that's something that's been illuminated. And I've just tried to center that as a purpose and a why. And now being here and connecting the dots, executing on these spaces looks like seeing these gaps and solving the problems, not just for me, but also for people who have similar lived experiences so that they don't have to experience the same challenges.
Awesome. So let's talk about some of the things that you you started the B Suite, so let's start there. What was the purpose of the B Suite, and why was it important to you to create that space?
Yeah, so it's exactly, really a build on what I just said. For me, being someone that has been very proud to be Black and then having a hard time finding spaces that embrace that and really speak to that, I feel like it's detrimental personally for me to continue to evolve in that fullness. And so in identifying that as just a personal, I would say goal, and knowing that it's just really important to have these spaces that see the whole identity of what it means to be a Black woman, what it means to be a Black professional, what it means to, want to thrive in my career, but also deserve spaces where I get to connect with other people that look like me and, have a drink and have a conversation, and the importance of community. That's really the big why. It's this personal experience that I've had in just navigating life in this balance of the professional world. And then also just realizing that community is so important. And you often don't get that internally in these corporate spaces, for example, or these organizations. And so you have to turn externally, and then you also see gaps there. And so for me, it's been about how do I bridge those gaps and create spaces, and then how do I bring the people into the room to be a part of it as well.
So the B Suite isn't just an event space, it's also a professional working space, correct?
Yes, so the vision for the B Suite is for it to be an event space and a co-working space. Yeah. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so if anybody wanted to use the B Suite, they can just connect with you there, and they'll be able to utilize that for working experiences, for events, for trainings, whatever it is that they want to do.
Yep, exactly. So the idea would be, we're a space that you could come to develop yourself professionally outside of the context of your corporate space. Because again, in feeling boxed in and advocating for more, there often weren't resources for that. So if I want to make this career pivot, who supports me in gaining the skill set? Because when you make those attempts, they tell you you don't have the, you don't have the background, you don't have the experience.
Right.
So there's no one really there to resource you. And unless your goals align with the company's goals or what goals they have set for you, you often are, left with very little to help support you in that journey. And so that's why the professional aspect is really important. Yeah. And then the events really just help round that, because it's also important to have spaces where outside of that context, you can just let your hair down, have conversations, enjoy networking with professionals that, get the lived experience that you have.
Yeah, I like that. And speaking of support and resources, I think as an entrepreneur, as someone who's a big visionary and is trying to piece together community and business, a big business, right? I got a chance to check out all your social profiles, and I was just saying, I'm like, girl, you made that look like effortless, but I also saw that you did a lot of behind the scenes. So there's so much that people don't see, know, or understand that it takes to get done, right? So walk us through some, just from a transparent and vulnerable standpoint, like what were some challenges that you had to go through in the process of entrepreneurship and trying to, build community and bringing women together and relocating and whatever else?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying that Black women are the most founded group of people, as entrepreneurs, but are the least funded. So, statistically, we're founding businesses, right, faster than most groups. However, we go under-resourced. And so for me, that's been like a major challenge, is finding the resources to support the vision that I have. And so sometimes you really just got to work with what you got, right? And so that's been a big part of, my journey, is really just starting with what I had access to, and, less about this, the challenge of not having the resources, and more about like what's in front of me, like what do I have access to? Who are the people that are within my reach? Like who are the peers that I can collaborate? Because those are the things that are within my control that go against, the statistics of just not having the resources. So for me, that's been a big thing. I think the challenge along with that, though, is like you get told no so often, and you have to just get comfortable with that. And, you have to figure out, like, you have to really change your perspective around being told no and your relationship around, like, this rejection that you experience, because otherwise it will begin to damage your confidence and your belief in your why and your vision, because other people don't see the vision and they don't get it. and because it's not for them, right? Because a lot of these resources are associated with, predominantly white spaces and people until recently. Now we have a lot more resources like the Fearless Fund that are created specifically for us. However, historically that hasn't been the case. And so, for me, my journey has been just really figuring out that relationship with rejection and shifting the perspective around it, and also just getting comfortable being told no, and really focusing more on the things that I do have within my control and things I do have access to.
Tell us about the first time you heard no. What did that feel like? And what was it for?
So a very humbling moment. This is probably not the first time, but this is what I can remember. That's why I'm immediately thinking about it. So I remember after I graduated from graduate school, I moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and just really bright-eyed, really fresh in entrepreneurship, really confident, really, I'm that girl, like, energy. And I moved, and I was immediately like, okay, I got this idea. It's great. Everybody's going to think it's great. My friends think it's great. My mama think it's great.
I always think it's great.
I had shirts. I had everything. And I found this.
You had shirts?
I had shirts.
What did the shirt say?
Got flavor. I still have that shirt. I sleep in that shirt. And the brand at the time was Food Feels Flavor, and that was really how I was bringing together food and travel. And so I remember moving to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and immediately wanting to immerse myself in the community because that's just who I am. And I found this pitch competition. It was called a pitch competition. Pitch competition. So I found this pitch competition. Oh, okay, sorry. So I found this pitch competition, and it was called 5x5. And so essentially, in order to make it to the top 5, you had to get the top amount of votes, right? And then you get to participate as top 5 in this pitch competition. So again, being confident, all of these things. I'm advertising on social media, telling my friends, go vote for me. And I got selected to be in the top 5. Now, this is me, like maybe a month or two into being in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But obviously, I got my people with me. They believe in me. So I got I made the top 5. And so, y'all, I bombed this pitch competition.
What did it sound? What was your pitch like?
I don't even remember. That's probably the problem. It was like a blur. I didn't prepare, properly. Okay. I think I came with my confidence. I came with my people. They had shirts on. And so, that was a very humbling experience, and just the process of preparation. And that's the beauty in failing, is you learn, and that's the relationship that I had to create and shift with no and with failing, right? Is that I got to learn. And so, I'm glad I did it. I was on the news.
You got on the news.
I was on the news. Yes. I was interviewed. It was great. And then I also got connected with the entrepreneur community there. So a lot came from it. A lot of positive things came from it in a very quick amount of time, in transitioning there. But that was a bomb. It was bad. I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible.
Okay.
But it wasn't my best moment. Mm-hmm. And it was because I didn't prepare properly. I just kind of got up there.
I love that. We want a shirt.
Want a shirt.
I can revive the shirts. I can do that.
Oh, dang, I don't even. Okay, I'm going to transition.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about Syzygy.
Syzygy, yes.
Syzygy. Y'all, we practiced this 11 times on the phone. We couldn't get it right. Syzygy. And now we're on spot, and I still didn't get it right. Okay, tell us.
Yes, Syzygy. So the word Syzygy in its original spelling, we use the phonetic spelling of it, means the connection of two or more corresponding things. And so I really wanted to be intentional around that meaning and bringing together food and travel with just merging these things that were connected and creating experiences really centered around food through travel. And that's the origin of it. And so, again, bright-eyed, I'm in graduate school. I'm writing my thesis about food because I was studying food science. specifically sensory science. And honestly, I feel like I was losing my passion for food science, and losing my passion for food more so. Like adding the science to it just made it less fun. Honestly, there was like just like this, I don't know, monotony, I guess, of just the daily task of doing this lab work for my thesis. And you know, it's kind of how they say, like, sometimes like making your passion your job, like eventually you'll burn out from it because it becomes about something else. And so that's really what I experienced. And for me, because I noticed that that was happening, I wanted to figure out a way to reconnect back to food that felt fun again, that felt, you know, like more authentic to who I am. And so that's really where I decided to start launching these trips to bring people together. And
Group trips.
So I texted a bunch of friends, and I asked them if I planned a trip to Montreal, would you like come? Like, I do all the planning, you just pay, you meet me there, and it's gonna be centered around food. And everybody said yes. And this is actually speaking a lot.
Yes.
People really believe in
food.
me. You know,
I would
like
be
that's
there.
As I'm thinking about this, like people really believe in me. So they're like, yeah, you know, they didn't no questions, just like they'll show up. And so so that was the start of it. So I planned this trip. We went to Montreal. I chose Montreal because I had access to it. And then somebody, you know, a broke college student, it was somewhere I could drive to. So I actually drove to Canada. I drove 11 hours to Montreal, Canada from Ohio to host this trip. I know, yeah. So, and
did others fly in though?
They did, but they were coming from like Texas and California and all of these other places. But for me, it was just important, like, where's somewhere I have access to? Again, working with what I have, right? Like, I knew I didn't have the resources necessarily to maybe travel to some of these places, like by plane at the time. However, I knew that if I could drive there. And it was important that it was an international experience because I wanted to just offer something different. And in Montreal, with, you know, it being a French-speaking place, and then a lot of the culture and the cuisine also is really diverse. So it was a great place to like trial this out. And I mean, the rest is history. It was a great experience. To this day, a lot of people name that as like the best trip that they've actually been on.
Raise your hand if you would take an internet for food adventure. Until right here in this space, we want to go. Take us on a trip. I love it. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to go? Okay, so how many trips have you done so far with Sister G?
I have done a total, with COVID interrupting, I think I've done a total of...
Okay, where were all the places that you've gone to?
Yep, so some of them we went to a few times. So we've been to Montreal a few times. We've been to Havana, Cuba a few times. We've been to Bali a few times as well. And then we've also been to Spain.
Okay. Are these mostly like girls' trips? I mean, where are the men? Are the men on the trips too? We do girls' trips all the time, but where are the men? Are they on the trips?
So I will admit that most, you know, okay, so I will admit women tend to travel more. So that's my target audience. And they bring their partners. And so a lot of the men that end up on our trips are partnered.
Okay.
So this isn't a, you know, freak me.
All right.
Yes. So.
Okay. We're working on that. Right. You know, maybe a singles trip. You know.
But that's actually, I like that concept.
Do a singles.
Yes. I like that concept. We can figure that out.
And then, Jhaelynn, you also co-founded In Sisterhood We Brunch. Do you want to talk about that really briefly, about how that got started and where you're at with that now?
Yeah, so that was the first thing that I was able to do when moving here, actually. And so for me, it was this opportunity again in recognizing these gaps and the lack of spaces for folks of color, you know, just to make it clear, because it's really important for me in general to elevate black spaces, but also to like point it out when it's a BIPOC space versus a black space. And so in Sisterhood We Brunch, the focus was on BIPOC women, creating spaces specifically really focused, you know, on bringing women together and women of color. And the origin of that was, again, how do we figure out a way where women of color can come together to connect with each other, to also in an informal way upskill themselves, right? So we had like a little bit of programming where we would do networking, we would have panel discussions, and this was just an opportunity for folks who have this expertise and gain knowledge and experience to just share it, right, within a large group of people, because oftentimes there's this barrier of access where, you know, it's very limited in like having that reach.
One of the things that we talked about, so we're going to pivot this a little bit in our podcast meeting, is the amount of spaces that we do have available for us to get together, whether it's a space like this, whether it's a broader event, maybe it's you know, a club or a nice buy-about suite type of space, a lounge, that we don't have that many spaces. And as a transplant, I know you also notice a gap with that too. What are your thoughts on how we expand that here in the Twin Cities? What are some gaps and what are some ways that we can come together more often? And then another question to piggyback on that, do you think that we gatekeep some of that? And I'll also throw it to the audience after you answer that question, because of the price of how much some of these events cost. It's not always accessible to everybody. Does it make sense to be, or should we be doing it differently? But I want to get your thoughts first.
The audience got something to say. I heard a little something. So I'll answer the first part of your question around my thoughts, like why don't we have these spaces and what does it look like to create more of these spaces?
Yes.
I think it just looks like doing it, honestly, and being consistent in doing it. I think it looks like noticing the gap and then figuring out ways to collaborate, because I think it's difficult doing it alone. And sometimes, like, if you attempt to do it alone, you'll burn out quicker. And so then you end up not seeing this longevity and this, you know, sustained effort. And so I would say noticing the gap, you know, collaborating to do something about it, but then also like being intentional around centering, specifically thinking about Black spaces, like centering Black people, Black culture, and not watering it down. And I say that because, again, this difference between Black spaces and BIPOC spaces and spaces for people of color being different in that if we blanket it all as one thing, then we really water down what the need is for the individual groups of people. And so specifically for Black people in the Black community, that need is different. And so it needs to be, we need to address and acknowledge that intentionally, and I think the people will come because there's a problem being solved.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, like that.
And then what about, you know, sometimes the prices of some of these places can be up, they can be down.
Yes.
Some people can access it, sometimes they can't. What are your thoughts about access to some of the spaces when we do create them?
Yeah, I think we need a range. I think truthfully, just being an entrepreneur, but also being a community member, I think a range is what's practical, where we have on one side an event like this, where I think the tickets were like $15,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's very much so
Very
accessible,
reasonable.
right? But then also, I think it's fair on the other end if you are producing high quality events to charge what it's worth, because as someone putting these events on, you need to make a profit. You need to sustain the work that you're doing, and you need to also be able to pour it out into the community, quality produced events, because we deserve those spaces as well.
I agree. Does anyone else agree or disagree? What are some additional thoughts? Who else has some thoughts on that? What do you think about the spaces that we have available for us here in the Twin Cities? Anybody else want to comment on it? Raise your hand. I'll come to you. I'll be your Kiki Shepherd. For those of us of a certain age. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Can I ask a question too?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I'm also just curious, as someone curating spaces, so she's asking a question around, you know, what are your thoughts on the pricing and access to these spaces? But I'm curious about what are the spaces that you desire to exist in? Like what are the rooms that you want to be in? What are those spaces feel like and look like?
Can you please tell us your name, your occupation, or the industry that you're in?
How's everybody doing out there? So, Thomas Jackson, owner of Part 365, recently opened in the Twin Cities area. Fun fact, also a background in food science.
Oh!
So, yeah. But yeah, no, I'd say come through. We are a indoor golf simulator, bar, restaurant, lounge, we're definitely diversifying the space. We're trying to provide access, provide approachability, provide affordability to the game of golf in a way that's uniquely ours and uniquely our perspective. So it's something that hasn't been done really in the country. We are the first the first black-owned golf simulator in the state and region, the second black woman-owned golf simulator in the nation. So completely accessible, different levels, events, restaurant, experiences, the whole thing located right in Roseville.
Name?
The name of the place is Par 365 Golf. Yep.
Anybody else have any events that you'd like to see? What do you want to see more of here in the Twin Cities? About access, anything like that? Anyone just have a general comment or question? Okay. Tell us your name and occupation or industry that you're in.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Hello. My name is and I work at Target in product ownership. My thoughts are, I think that we are not a monolith as black people, and I feel like historically, especially in Minnesota, it's either ratchet, I'm just gonna be honest, or very upscale, but I appreciate how the Playfessionals have kind of come in and kind of bridged the gap between, like, I can get ratchet at a Playfessionals event, but I'm not gonna get shot, and I love that.
Yes.
Oh, they come out.
Y'all, I wish I could say play the clip because we got some clips of Bria.
I love just being a multifaceted person. Like, if I want to get ratchet, I want that space. If I want to be classy, I want that space. If I want a mix, I want that space too. Like, I want to be able to live out every part of myself and be able to be every part of myself no matter where it is. And I appreciate just diverse experiences that cater to every part of me, not just one or the other.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? And I want to hear from Guy because we have all of these wonderful events and I see all the beautiful ladies. Shout out to all the beautiful ladies in the room, but where are the guys? All right. Who wants to talk about it? Anybody else that, where? Back here? Oh, okay. I'm keep. Okay. Name and the industry you're in.
Hello. All right. My name is Kenneth Scales. I'm in the nonprofit sector, so I work in fundraising, but I'm also an entrepreneur. And so a lot of my friends, they always reach out to me. What's up, Adora? I see you back there. So a lot of my friends, they always reach out and ask me what are the latest and greatest restaurants that's going to? So we got my man right here at P365. We got Classic Kitchen that's going on. So literally, I'm excited for this summer because we are doing something in this black community that has not been done before, right? This is brand new for Minnesota. So anytime I travel, people are like, is there black people in Minnesota? I'm like, absolutely there is. And this, one of the events, Playfessionals, is it talks about how we all come together, right? So once and it's one thing that I want to say too. It's one thing about us being the first black-owned of this, the first black-owned of that. But it's a problem if we're only the first and we don't duplicate ourselves. So a lot of times in our community, we also always hello? But at the end of the day, it's we want to make sure that we can be
I think you have to.
All right, well, we're going to get this wrapped up so we can get some music. Shout out to Willie Shue. Hey, Willie. Okay, who's going to be DJing here? I have one question before we wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everybody who's sat in and listened with us. I just want to know what is, as you've learned more about yourself in this journey and your growth process, what is the biggest takeaway that you can share with any of us in here in terms of personal growth, and dreaming big?
Yeah, so I think a question that I was asked was really instrumental in my personal growth journey. And the question was, who are you uninterrupted? And so in interpreting that question as like, who am I if nothing's in my way, if nothing was ever in my way, if, I hadn't experienced certain challenges, right? Like when I'm at my best, like who am I? And so a lot of the growth journey has been really getting back to that core and leading with that. And so that's what I'd like to say, just understanding who you are uninterrupted. Yes, so the B Suite is popping. Big things. Woo! Big B. The B Suite. So really with the B Suite, what you can look forward to is an array of events ranging from our seat at the table dinner party. We have a brunch on the way as well. We have some more tailored and specific and more intimate spaces catered to men and women, Black men and women as well. And then also, we're working towards building our membership base for our co-working space. So those are the things I would say that are on the way. If you're not following us, please follow us on social media. Instagram is the.bsuiteco. The same for Facebook, it's the B Suite. And then our website is b-suite.co. Oh yes, that's what I was saying. Oh, also, if you need a space for your events, hit us up. We rent it out.
Okay. All right. Can you give it up one more time for Jhaelynn, please? We want to thank Jhaelynn so much for letting us interview her. We want to thank you, the audience, for joining us in the podcast today. And I just want to remind you again, make sure you follow Jhaelynn on her IG pages, everything that she just mentioned. Make sure you check out the B Suite. Make sure you check out Playfessionals on IG, on Facebook, on LinkedIn especially, and make sure you keep up with everything on www.playfessionals.com. I'm Francine, the Liberian Queen.
And Glyza, your favorite foodie.
And that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody. Oh my goodness. Okay. So the name of our podcast is #WorkInProgress. I forgot about myself. I was having such a good time. You can follow us on Listen to WIP. On Instagram, we have a page, www.listentowip.com. You can see the latest episodes that we have. You can also listen to us on Spotify, on CastBox, and everywhere that you listen to your podcasts.
And follow Jhaelynn at LL Cool J. Just put that out there. Thank y'all. Let's have a good time, y'all.
Yeah. One more time.